my biggest thing was just, if you love the game, then you have to do whatever it takes to just push through, because it's going to make you stronger, and it's going to make you a better hockey player, and, you will reap the reward.
Welcome to Hockey Culture. I'm Anson Carter, and we want to try to change the culture of hockey one interview at a time. We have Kelsey Koelzer joining us. Kelsey, pleasure to have you today. I got to read off all your accolades. I mean, it's been pretty impressive. You're a Princeton grad, you have a psychology degree. You're a first-team All-American, first Princeton Tiger female All-American at that. You're All-Ivy. Your first overall draft pick NWHL for New York Riveters, who are now the Metro Riveters, and you won an Isabel Cup. So congratulations to your successful career. You're also the first Black coach in Arcadia University. So welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
It's amazing looking at all you've accomplished in your career. It's when I talked to one of my good friends, his name is Barrington Miller, and Bear went to Princeton, and he was ranting and raving. I played with Bear junior hockey in Canada. He's also a Black hockey player, and he was just gushing. He was so proud of the player that you were, the fact that you represent the University Princeton with such high regard. So he told me to tell you to say hello.
Well, I appreciate his kind words. It was a great 4 years. So
I know you went to an Ivy League school, so we won't compare educations here because, Princeton, Ivy League's two different levels. But what was it like on campus? How inclusive was it in the locker room, but also on campus too, going to school at Princeton University?
Yeah, I think I'm very fortunate for the time that I attended Princeton. I always felt very welcome. Especially amongst the athlete community. I think that helped me a lot. I think that my experience could have been very different if I was just a student and didn't have that student athlete identity that I could really fall back on. And so, I had an amazing group of friends, such supportive coaches, and really supportive athletic department that helped me a lot throughout my 4 years, really helped me push through that tough freshman year to kind of, keep chugging along and figure out what was going to be the best for me, in the classroom and on the ice for me to ultimately find success and kind of, stick with it and get that Princeton education. So, it definitely was, it's definitely different, obviously being, one of very, very, very few African-American women's hockey players within Princeton women's ice hockey history. But I think that it also helped me to, really take advantage of the opportunities that I had to kind of break down some barriers and open some doors.
Sometimes people have their resumes and they submit their resumes and, obviously you have Princeton on yours, that wouldn't be an issue. But when you walk into a room and people hear your name beforehand, Kelsey Koelzer, and then they see what you look like, have you had any reaction to people that are assuming one thing but see you walk in the room and think another?
I think, I think even just in everyday conversation, when oftentimes when I say I play ice hockey, or I'll start off, they'll they say, wow, you have such an athletic build. I get that a lot. What sports do you play? And I just naturally hockey flows out. And then the first question out of, they get that little twinge to their face. And, the first question that you play field hockey. And I have to explain, no, I play ice hockey. And then, funny enough, for some reason, people can't fathom that girls and women play college NCAA Division I hockey. So they always ask me, oh, did you play on the boys team at Princeton? And I say, no, the girls, we have our own team, and just even, when I say that I did attend Princeton, there is sometimes just a slight element of shock that you can just, you can read on someone's face just in that first instance before they kind of check themselves and realize, what their faces could potentially be saying. So I do get that sometimes, and then fortunately it's often definitely followed by a lot of positive sentiment after that. And so, that's something but it is always just a slight shock when I kind of go through my academic and athletic history with people. And you know, it's certainly not, I think, what they would expect at first.
How popular was playing hockey for women and even young girls when you were growing up? Did you play on girls' teams? Did you have to play on boys' teams? And if so, did you have to overcome any barriers doing so?
Yeah, I played on all boys' teams up until from the time I started at the age of 4 up until I want to say 13 or 14 is when I made the transition over to only girls. And so, you know, it's funny because the first obstacle that I ever really faced in hockey was being the girl, as opposed to, you know, being the black player. Mm-hmm. So that's something that, you know, I faced right off the bat, whether it was parents, players, coaches. You know, I did at times feel that, you know, kind of targeting that a lot of girls will feel on the ice playing boys hockey. Luckily for me, I was always a little bit bigger than the boys growing up. So, you know, it was all right for me until I got to high school. And that's when I kind of realized, well, this is, you know, they're getting a little too big for me. So I need to kind of transition over. But that was the first barrier that I faced, was getting through the negative comments of being a girl playing a boys sport. And then, you know, it's kind of, I think it helped me because by the time I really faced the being black in a white sport, you know, I was really prepared and had such a thick skin at that point that nothing was going to stop me from reaching my goals.
How did you deal with that? I mean, for all the young women out there, young girls out there that want to be hockey players, regardless of what color you are, how did you deal with people always coming down, talking negative to you about a sport that you don't really see a lot of, say, women playing? Like basketball, you hear about the WNBA. There isn't a professional men's team affiliated with, or women's team affiliated with the NHL per se. You've got the NWHL that's still playing right now. So what would your advice be to young girls out there that want to play the game of hockey or are playing the game of hockey that are facing this backlash?
Yeah, you know, you really do, I would say, you know, find your support group and, you know, fall back on them a lot. I was fortunate to play on a boys team where we pretty much all moved up an age group at the same time. So I was with the same group for, you know, at least 6-7 straight years. And that was something that, you know, it did take a bit of getting used to at the beginning. But they really had my back on the ice when it came to negative comments from opposing teams and parents and things like that. I think another thing that helped me a lot was just my family. They were always so supportive and just reminding me that I do deserve to play hockey. And so that was something that I fell back on a lot. You know, after games, in the car, I would be talking to my family about what I heard. And, you know, it always was just a matter of let your play speak for itself. And that was something that I rode really hard through, you know, those initial years where boys are, you know, starting to realize, like, you know, where the boys and girls are just not, you know, they're not quite comfortable with you, you know, being on the same ice as them, and they don't think you deserve to be there. So I would just, you know, my biggest thing was just, you know, if you love the game, then you have to do whatever it takes to just push through, because it's going to make you stronger and it's going to make you a better hockey player. And, you know, you will reap the reward once you know, get to a stage where, whether you're in high school and you have a good girls program that you can transition to, or, you know, even if it's, you know, playing boys all the way up through college, you know, you'll get to reap that reward by making it to that level.
And wasn't there a time when you played with the boys when there was a boy that said something negative to you, like a racial slur towards you, and then you kind of responded by cracking him over the head with your stick?
Yeah, there was one instance. You know, regrettably, I definitely lost my temper. I lost my cool. It actually occurred, I was a sophomore in high school. So I was playing high school hockey for my public high school. You know, not the highest level of hockey. I just, you know, it was something fun to do. And so, you know, when he skated down and he tried to check me and I kind of got out of the way. And that's when, you know, he threw the N-word my way. And, you know, it just, I lost my cool, and it's something that, you know, immediately I regretted as the ref. You know, of course, he only saw the retaliation. So I went to the box, I was sitting my 2 minutes, and, you know, he came over, and I actually, you know, I had known him for a long time, the ref that took me to the box, and I explained everything. And, after the game, I'm sitting there stewing, and after the game, my mom was like, it's look who wound up getting punished. So you just have to kind of put your head down, let the right authorities know what happened so that can be handled at the appropriate level. But, don't lose your cool and have it negatively impact you. Just let your play speak for itself. So that was something that it was a good learning lesson.
Now, would you pass that same message along to kids? Because listen, I'm not one that's going to encourage violence. However, I don't mind that response. I know when that stuff happened to me as a kid, I never, hit anyone over the head, but I always filled the net. I mean, I was always that kid that would score 5, 10, 15 goals sometimes, believe it or not, during games if someone called me those names. What kind of conversation would you have? Because now you're a coach with your players. If you coached a black player and this occurred on the ice and they came to you and said, hey, Coach Koelzer, this happened to me, how would you address that situation with them?
Yeah, in the moment, if a player comes to me and they react that way, it's, again, you have a hard time, you have a hard time punishing them because you understand, where those feelings come from. And sometimes, we're not all perfect. Sometimes, we can let our emotions get the best of us. And that's something that I think is an appropriate reaction. But I think that, once you go through it once and you're sitting there in the box and you're really, all you're doing is getting angrier and angrier because you can't be out on the ice, kind of sticking it to them by making great plays, scoring goals, whether you're a D or goalie, preventing them from scoring goals, different things like that. So, I think that it's something that, naturally can happen. But I would always kind of encourage my players to just let your actions speak louder than, your words and make it positive actions that are, kind of making them just feel foolish. Really, that's, I think that's the important message. And then, making sure that it gets, that information gets in the right hands, let the referees know, let the coaches know so that it can be addressed at a higher level and that, so that player can then be educated and, learn from their mistakes as well, and go through their due punishment as well.
A lot of former players lean on previous experiences from other coaches. What coaches have you been drawing that feedback from as you're starting your coaching career? And also with your degree in psychology, I always thought that coaches are the best shrinks. It's not about X's and O's. It's about managing people. How do you plan on using that degree to make yourself a better coach?
Yeah, it's something that, especially in college, I actually started as an engineering major at Princeton and it was not the right space for me. And so I switched over. And when I was exploring, psychology really caught my eye just because it is so applicable to so many, real life experiences. And, I couldn't have asked for a better major to get into coaching because it does teach you so much about how to, manage different personalities and how to speak to someone on an individual level, but then also how to, get people to come together as a group. So that's something that is extremely important to me. And it's something that I draw a lot on, especially as I have individual interactions and group interactions. But, I've had a lot of really great coaches. I would say that I take something from every single coach that I have had. I've had, the coach that screams is the loudest person in the ranks, screaming 24/7. And I've had coaches that are, extremely quiet. They just say what needs to be said and move on from there. So I think that I try to take a lot of aspects from both. There's my coach from college, Kara Morey. She's been obviously a big inspiration for me because she does believe so much in empowering women and female athletes and, making sure that, everyone is equal and there's justice and everything like that. So she's definitely an inspiration, as well as another coach from college. I have Ashley Kilstein, who actually, I really leaned on her a lot throughout my whole interview process, and just, kind of picking her brain, because she basically rebuilt a Division III program earlier in her career. And, so she's somebody that has always been, kind of a backbone for me as I'm, kind of getting into everything and getting into the swing of things as we look forward to our inaugural season in 2021.
Well, as you're wearing multiple hats, head coach, you're also part of the Female Hockey Advisory Committee with the NHL, NHLPA. How do you see the NHL and the NWHL becoming more inclusive? Like, what voice are you going to use and say to have participation in making the leagues, both leagues, men and women's hockey, more inclusive?
Yeah, I think obviously, once you get to that top level, the NHL and, women's professional hockey, it's a little bit too late at that point. I really do think that there is a huge importance to be put on, grassroots level activations. And I think there's so many different ways. And I think that the NHL has made a great start in just, really trying to expose the game to as many different people as possible. And I think that a lot of the focus has so far been on, increasing the number of women in the game. But I think that a lot of, what the programs that are focused on, increasing exposure to women can also apply to, increasing exposure to minorities. It's making ice hockey more accessible, starting with street hockey or ball hockey, or starting with programs in the schools to introduce kids so that they can then go home and say, oh my God, Mom, Dad, I played this awesome sport. And then, parents can do their research and find cheap alternatives to just, going and buying head to toe equipment for a kid that's just going to try the game. I think that there are a lot of programs, but a lot of it does stem from just the exposure to, the younger generation. And a lot of that is what the players do on social media and at camps and making themselves accessible to, the younger generation on top of, just programming that you can start from the onset to, just really make the game more accessible.
We're seeing more and more women being hired by our National Hockey League organizations. Blake Bolden, first Black female scout, LA Kings. Put yourself in their shoes. I'm a general manager, say the next 5-10 years. Present a case for yourself as to why I should hire you as my next head coach.
I think it is just the mindset and the different experiences that can be brought to the table. It's obviously being a female and then minority player. I've had to endure a lot to get where I am. And that's something that I think, the character, I can hang with the best of them. And that's something that I am proud to say after, 22 years in the game now. And so, that on top of, the accomplishments on the ice and just being willing to, be humble and learn and still take in and, offer different viewpoints is something that is something unique that you can get from a female voice. And so I'm very glad and fortunate that, a lot more programs, NHL programs are, expanding and opening their doors to a female voice. And, now with Blake's hire, a female minority voice, I think that's something that's really important.
And I've always said that, teams really shouldn't question Black players' love for the game, like ever, because everything that Black players have gone through and experienced, and the fact that someone like yourself still wants to be involved in the game in a coaching capacity, that should say enough as to whether or not you or myself still love the game.
Yeah. It's something that I can confidently say I've never, ever lost in 22 years. No matter how hard practices were, no matter how tough coaches were on me, no matter how, tough it was to, at times just kind of constantly be in the spotlight. It's something that, I've always found kind of that safe home in the game. And it's something that, it is why I get into coaching and why I love the game so much, because, I want to be able to bring that to other girls as well. Because it is something that, hockey is such it's such a unique sport, and you have to be such a strong athlete to play that. And, you know, I think it flies under the radar a bit, and it's something that it boggles my mind, you know, for a sport as difficult and entertaining and exciting as hockey. You know, it's the players that play. I mean, we love the game, and it is something that you end up with for a lifetime. And
lastly, I want to ask you, what's been the impact of Willie O'Ree on your life and on your career?
What I tell the boys and girls when I visit the programs, you know, if you think you can, you can. If you think you can't, you're right. And there's a lot of truth to that. So you boys and girls can do anything you set your mind to do. There's no substitute for hard work. You know, you only get out of a thing what you put into it. If anybody tells you there is, they're lying to you.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I mean, he's the whole reason for my career, and for, you know, the ability to even have conversations like this. And so, you know, it is, you know, it took me a little bit to really learn the history and, you know, kind of be able to appreciate the impact that he's had, not just on the game of hockey, but on the sports world as a whole. And so, you know, that's something that I think everyone should try their best to educate themselves on, because it is truly an amazing story. But, you know, I think that I have my, you know, whole career to thank him. You know, it's something that, you know, having gotten the opportunity to meet with him and take a photo with him, it was such a surreal moment at the NHL Stadium Series in Philadelphia. And, you know, after filming the documentary and watching it countless times, you know, it's something that it's hard to put into words the impact that he's had and that he will continue to have on the sport of hockey.
You know, coaching is like a game of musical chairs, right? It's always who has the chair, who has the chair. And made me think of that as I saw that chair mysteriously just floating to the background now. You know, we're very happy that you have a seat at the table right now. It's very important. Like on this hockey culture, we like to have conversations, with people that are doing things, but also people that are having results. You know, you could talk the talk, you want to walk the walk too. So for you to still stay involved in the game, to coach and pass down that wisdom to the future generation, a lot of hockey fans out there are grateful. I'm grateful. I want to thank you very much for joining me on Hockey Culture today. And I'm looking forward to watching your path and watching your success as you gain more experience in the world of coaching.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm very grateful for the opportunity. You know, I thought it was the dog popping in there, but just a rope chair that we have in our extra. So, but yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's always amazing to have these conversations and, you know, give people the opportunity to learn new perspectives.